Are we live? Right, thanks everyone for coming and welcome to this third meeting of the Tourist Information Working Group. I think first of all I should give apologies, and I've had apologies from Councillor Anne Fox and from Tony Broom. I don't think anyone else has apologised. Shall we just go around the table and do quick introductions? Would that help? If everyone doesn't know it, everyone else?
We know each other.
You all know each other, don't you?
Does everyone know each other? Okay, I won't. I won't do that. Okay, right, well thanks for coming. Has everyone seen the agenda?
No, sorry, I haven't.
First of all. Does anyone have a spare?
Can I just have a look?
They did pass the Anne-Marie. I've been in touch with Anne-Marie because she wanted to come along just to talk about what's happening at St Peter's and the kind of tourist contact and information that they produced. And also Councillor Harry Sampson is here to talk about the public conveniences because he's leading a working group on that.
Not quite a working group.
A one-man.
It's one man, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's such a fun subject.
It's a very
I
important
liked
subject.
your abbreviation.
Okay, so that's apologies. Next item is notes of the last meeting, which have been circulated. Has everyone seen those? I've got a couple of spare copies. You need them? So, are there any matters arising from the notes of the last meeting? I circulated the information from Chris Townend at DDC, which was quite useful, with various videos and attachments. Now, visitor numbers. I just had a schedule today from the officers in the Guildhall with figures for visitors to both the Guildhall and the Visitor Information Centre for the last 14 months, more or less, no, 13 months, since January 22 onwards. And they're quite interesting. I'll try and circulate these to everyone. I won't go through them now, but just to say that the numbers are, I think the way the numbers are assessed, that they look at the numbers coming into the Guildhall for Guildhall related issues, and then numbers coming in for tourist related issues. I'm not sure exactly how that split is made, because if someone walks through the door, how do they decide? But broadly speaking, going back to January last year, for example, the week of the 31st of January, they had 20 tourist people coming through the door and 269 Guildhall people coming through the door. Whereas if you look at the summer, the height of the summer, there were, let's say July 22, they had 379 Guildhall visitors and 162 tourist visitors during 1 week.
That's quite poor, really.
Yeah.
Considering the amount of people that come into Sandwich and come to look and find information, to have that low figure, I think that's quite a low figure.
Well, exactly. I mean, the week.
Medieval Centre.
Well, can I just tell you that in January, from the 2nd of January to the 31st, I had 2,500 people through the church.
Say that again, 20?
From the 2nd of January to the 31st of January, I had 2,500 people come through the church, because I have to mark visitors every single day and do statistics, and that's for January.
This year.
This January just gone.
And that's everyone.
You're seen as a big point.
Yeah,
Interest.
that is
Sandwich residents and tourists.
that's Sandwich residents tourists, and there's probably people off there that I have missed because I've been so busy that I've not seen people walk through the door.
Medieval Centre had over 1,000 in the back of the weekend.
Yeah.
I think these numbers are quite low, as you see.
Another thing that needs to be factored in is the museum. There's a number of people coming to the museum asking to see tourist information. We need the museum visitor numbers as well. So.
The confusing thing is what we make of these numbers, what we do with them. They're hard to interpret. But what we actually do with them is more important. I haven't got the agenda in front of me. Where does pop-up come back onto the agenda? When do you next talk about
We
it?
can talk about it tonight.
Because this is really the issue.
Yeah.
So if people are coming into Sandwich and they're wandering around and they obviously are going into St Peter's, many of us going to other places, but they may or may not be coming into Guildhall. I still believe it doesn't matter whether the TRC is here or at the front, they're still not coming in. So they're never used to coming to the front. So any idea of taking the VIC to the visitors is a good one. So to pick up on that idea, which was only floated at the first meeting of this working group 2 meetings ago, and progress that and look at the options, there's got to be something worth exploring.
Yeah.
And the question is, how do you do that? Who does it? How do you progress that?
I think the issue for me here is that the phrase visitor information centre is confusing, because what is a visitor? Is it someone who's coming in to talk about the allotment, or is it a tourist? I think it needs to be called the tourist office. That's clear.
But shouldn't it be in line with Dover and Kent stats, whatever they're doing? I mean, because if Chris Tanner were here, he would say how Dover, Deal and others measure and what they measure. We've got no comparability unless we're doing the same.
I'll ask him how they collate their statistics.
Yeah.
Sorry, did you say 162 people versus 269?
Well, for example, 17th of January 22, there were 2 tourists for the whole week and 163 visitors to the Guildhall. I don't know
They
how
just do the tally chart, are they?
But they're not tourists,
they're coming in asking about the council business, allotments, parking, toilets. But the highest figure was the week of the funeral book, September last year. They had, but again, they put 522 visitors under VIC for that week. But I would imagine that's Sandwich residents, isn't it, mainly?
It's not really relevant because that doesn't happen every month
No.
or every year.
The trouble with all of these statistics, and Kent visitor, I mean, if we go to the open golf debrief on Friday, you get bombarded with statistics, how many thousands of hours a week the golf was on, but actually a lot of that was not useful hours, so you've got to interpret it all. But the point really is that over the years they've been part of all these figures, but it's what we do with them. And it doesn't matter whether they're accurate or indicative, it's what we do with them. So what's the problem we're addressing here? Well, the problem is we don't think we're looking after our tourists as well as we could be. It really doesn't matter whether it's 200 or 300 a week or whatever, we're still not looking after our tourists as well as we could be. And like I said, I don't think we ever have done, nor will I been back in Sandwich. And that's why I'm very keen to look at other ways of doing it. Now, what did we call the 2 paid staff who went out as information assistants?
Visitor information assistants.
So those visitor information assistants, did we measure how many people they contacted?
That's not
Someone
here.
did give us some figures,
Yeah.
but again, I don't know whether that was they were really visitors into the town that they were recording, or sorry, they were visitors, but they could have been visitors from a local village or something that just come in town. But I couldn't work out who they were and how they approach, because they'll only get that information if they are approached or they approach someone. So what about all the other people?
So that was an initiative and it's a cost
Yeah.
that had a budget. That's as important, the feedback from that is as important as how many people walked into the Guildhall.
I mean, I think
And that budget potentially could carry forward towards a new initiative which could be or could not be popular.
Yes.
And also these figures are only collated when the VIC is open, which
Yes.
is 3 hours a day, 4 days a week, I think.
Yeah.
So the figures are poor, but they're also slightly confusing and hard to understand.
So I'd like to go back to the question, how do you progress? Who progresses? How do you progress it? How do you pick up on what was a little idea that spoke a couple of meetings ago, which may or may not have some mileage in it, the idea of pop-up?
Yeah.
How do you carry that forward?
Well, can we come on to that later on the agenda? Because at the moment we're just going through the minutes of the last meeting. So is there anything else on the first page of the minutes?
I'd like to pick up about the fact that I was very upset that the market was absolutely rubbished at the last meeting.
Yeah.
I unfortunately wasn't able to come. I just want it to be known that the reason why the market is as small as it is because the development of the Guildhall. So therefore I've not took any new stalls on, even though I have a list of stall holders that wish to come, and I'm waiting till the development's done so that they can come along. Also, I have had lots and lots and lots of stalls who have come to the market, and they pay very little, £20 for a 3 metre pitch, and they feel it's not worth it because they don't get the footfall. So for saying that the market is, can we have it like Deal? Well, yes, we could have it like Deal if we have that amount of people coming through on a Thursday. But I've put lots of stalls on there. I've had stalls, all different types of stalls, and they'll stay for like a month or 2 months, and then the footfall, they say it's not worth it for the footfall. And the council will also tell you that I only charge £20 for a 3 metre by 3 metre pitch, and I haven't put that price up, even though they would like me to, because of the fact that I try to let people earn a little bit of money on a Thursday.
The footfall at the moment is appalling.
Yeah.
Where is that on the minutes?
Well, it says here, doesn't it? It was when it was. I watched it back last week, and I heard about the man who said he went to Deal and spoke to Deal traders and how Deal have got it right with all the coloured gazebos, etc. Well, they might have it right with all the coloured gazebos on a Saturday, but I try to do a Saturday market once a month, and I try to do a Sunday market once a month, and you just did not get the traders because we just do not get the footfall coming through the town.
But I think this was part of the discussion that we had, because the footfall, it's a chicken and egg situation. Without a full market going, you're not going to bring the local people into that market. Forget the tourists who might come, but the villages and the people around here, they're not coming in. And as the stalls have dwindled, understandably, but as they've dwindled, so we've had less and less people coming in to that market, and then that knock-on effect, as I understand it, to the local traders has also become an issue. So I understand where you're coming from in terms of you can't have the market when we don't really know whether you're going to have stalls or availability of space or not. But I believe that was more about what were we going to do in the future and how that market could be expanded, whether it was just Thursdays or Saturdays as well, because the market, if we're going to have a market, we need to have a full market, and I think it was suggested that there were other things that could come into that market, like, the getting out to, and I don't know how feasible this, but having far more of the farmers market, even if that was once a month, and the bric-a-brac out there, and all sorts of things that were there.
But we've tried that on a Saturday when we had the market, the Sandwich Town scene, where 2 weeks we had a food market, and then the following 2 weeks we had a general market, and it just completely died a death because stallholders didn't want to come because nobody came to it, even though it was well advertised.
That's one, so it's chicken and egg.
It is a chicken and egg, but it's going to be even worse for the local trade next week when the market goes into the Guildhall car park, because all people will do is will get out of the car, they will buy their stuff from the market, they will get back in their car and they will drive away. Whereas I personally feel that the market should have gone into Market Street.
Yes.
I'm sorry, but I really feel it should have gone into Market Street. I think if it went into Market Street on a Thursday, I think it would encourage more market stalls, it would encourage more people to come into the town, and also other big towns. They close a road for 1 day a week when they have a market, and we close King Street. We could put the market in King Street. We close King Street on a Saturday.
The market traders didn't want to go.
No, it wasn't the market traders. It was the shops in Market Street, and most of those shops have now gone. The fruit and veg shop didn't want it because of the fruit and veg. They've gone. The lady, your shop, you've got your shop. She didn't want it. It wasn't the market traders. It was the actual shops that kicked up a fuss in Market Street, and that was 3-4 years ago.
Also at the same time, pre-pandemic, at New Vision Sandwich Town Council was saying the council's going to run the market. The council, after the refurb, will take the market off whoever's running it, have a standardised set of stalls, have high standards, turn it into something professional, is the word that was being used. Can I just ask the councillors around the table, has that idea been conveniently dropped, or has it got any mileage to it?
No idea. I haven't heard anything. It's kind of disappeared.
I think neither myself nor Dean were on the council when that was being
correct,
discussed.
But I can say that I've worked with Anne-Marie tirelessly before to try and get the market moved into Market Street on the Thursday, but Dover District Council weren't entertaining it whatsoever. we tried our utmost to do it.
Tried very, very hard to get it into Market Street because I think that would benefit everybody on a Thursday. It would encourage more stalls to come.
Yeah.
It would encourage more people to actually come instead of just going to the Guildhall and then going back into the car park, to actually come into the town. They would see the stalls, they would see other shops, and they would wander around me. And I just think it's very short-sighted of the council not to put it into Market Street, even when the Guildhall for development's done.
So moving forward, if this is something that the businesses in Market Street and other areas want, then how is that going to be taken forward? And how is the market going to be taken
Well,
forward?
I personally think the market, when the development's done on the Guildhall, I don't think the market should go back on there. I think it should go into Market Street.
So how is that going to be progressed? If that's something that comes from this group and it's something that the traders want, and
So both on Thursdays and on Saturdays.
No, just a Thursday. I think
Thursday
if we could fill Market Street with good quality,
Yeah.
which would not impact on the businesses.
It's
You know,
common
that's
in-
the thing. You've got to look at the fact as well that stalls that come, I have stalls that come to the market, and then I have various businesses absolutely shouting at me because these people are selling the stuff that they sell but cheaper. So you'd have to look at the fact that whatever stalls you had in Market Street wouldn't impact the actual businesses in Market Street.
This is always the argument that shopkeepers say, oh, we don't want stalls because it competes, but footfall, the more people, the better,
Exactly.
surely.
It's not just the football, is it? And it's not just the competition. If you put stalls, and I'm playing devil's advocate really here, first of all you lose a load of parking spaces in Market Street.
You're going to lose that in the Guildhall anyway when they put the market in there.
No, in front of the Guildhall there are no parking spaces, right? But at the back, yes.
Yeah.
But I'm talking about in the future. So you lose a lot of parking spaces, firstly. Secondly, the back of every stall faces the shops. So the shops are hidden by
Well,
the
no,
stalls.
because you
And
just what you do is you wouldn't put stalls in front of the businesses, which
Yeah.
is what we do now,
Yeah.
that didn't want a shop in front of it. You know, you can still easily get 15 stalls in Market Street without putting them in front of businesses.
Whenever there's a market or anything out there, the footfall is amazing, and I have a really good day in there. And I can't, and also you're very good. Because there are lots of empty shops that
Yes.
that can have stalls in front of them. But I can't understand why the stalls can't be along the centre of the road, back to back.
yes.
I mean, surely that would be.
work.
You're not
Yeah,
allowed
that
to.
would work.
No, can't.
Why not?
You have to be, part of fire regulations, so if we need a finance to go down Market Street, you need to be made there needs to be a 4 metre gap for it to go through.
Would that not be wise?
That's health and safety.
Yes,
Okay.
that's all DDC events.
But I mean, if it has to be on the outside, I mean, I just think it generates such a fantastic atmosphere, and you need to. That's what we need is to, if we're going to encourage people to come in, we need to show them why. We need to encourage them with a fantastic atmosphere and get people excited about being in Sandwich. That it's not just this little quiet place. I mean, it is quiet, but we need to encourage people to come in and find us. And just go. A lot of people don't even come down Market Street.
No.
A lot of people just walk down King Street. They think, oh, that's it.
Going back to the
So-
market, unfortunately, Sandwich Town Council bears the responsibility for saying 3 or 4 years ago the council was going to take the market over, for putting the mockers on developing it, and more recently, as Anne-Marie said, it's been very difficult to develop markets still further because it has to go over there. All these are council decisions. And Dover might be advising that they don't want it in Market Street, but at the end of it, it's still Sandwich Town Council who owns the market strategy, the rules of the market in
Well,
the future.
that's true, but I've been on the council, 12 months, less, 11 months.
Even before,
It feels like it was.
can I just say, even before,
And in that time, there's been no report about the market.
even before I was a councillor, I was pushing Dover District Council to change from the market to Market Street while the Guildhall works are being, and they would not entertain it whatsoever.
It was a market that
Sorry, Steve.
Yeah, just really quickly. So obviously there's a lot of strong feelings about where this market needs to be. Clearly we all agree, so instead of going around in circles, we find a solution way forward. Obviously we need strength of feeling to translate into evidence, so we approach all of these traders, people who may be interested, we approach the local businesses, and they come back, maybe they say, maybe it turns out DDC is right, probably not.
timings.
Maybe they simply go, we wouldn't love this, in which case, exactly.
I mean,
But we provide evidence and we go back to them and we try.
on the agenda, we've got the Chamber of Commerce, and it proves the point that we need a strong business voice in this town, because otherwise there are too many different disparate voices speaking. So.
I was just going to say, this is obviously a very important part of our tourism offer, a thriving market with an atmosphere and an ambience. But I'm not sure that right now is where we want to talk about it, that we should talk about it on one of the council committees, and I'm thinking, or at the main council, and really get something going. And I agree with.
So I think
Can I make one final point, then I will shut down. As you probably know, I did actually manage the market for some years.
Right.
I was also on the design group for the forecourt, and it is both things are facts. The council said it would take the market over after the Guildhall refurbishment and turned into a more professional entity. And the second thing, the council took the market off the community interest company and brought it in-house. It's entirely of the council's doing.
okay. So
Actually, that was put forward, if I remember right, and I do, by Councillor MJ Holloway.
Correct.
So that was put forward at that time by Councillor Holloway, who thought that we should have these quite flashy tops and actually upgrade the whole market offer.
So if you go to Faversham, there's a standard gazebo type.
The thing is, it's all right
which they
about
all have.
upgrading the market, but you've still got to get the traders to come. And if we can have as many beautiful gazebos as you like, you can have proper stalls. But if I can't, or we can't get the traders to come to that market on a Thursday, then that is wasted money. But if you've got a proposal where you say, well, look, forget the Guildhall, let's go into Market Street or King Street on a Thursday, and business, you're going to get more traders because you're going to be right in the centre of town, you've got businesses surrounding you, and all right, you might lose 20 parking spaces, but it's 1 day a week, 1 day a week.
You can't have stalls in King Street for the same reason.
No, I know, but I'm just trying to say, John, I'm trying to make King Street come into it as well, so that the whole of the town in the middle will be compact with a market, so people will wander down to King Street, or they will wander, further down.
I just want to do 2 points, sorry Mark, I just want to do 2 points. I agree with what Harry said regarding that we need to speak to district councils. However, the work start next week. By the time we start talking to them, try to get move the market into Market Street, the square's going to be done, I believe. That's my feelings on timings.
Yeah, I'm just saying that maybe after the development.
Also, I agree with Claire, what she says, maybe this needs, as a market as a whole, needs to go to Heritage and Townscape Committee to discuss it in detail.
Yes, I was going to say it could be Heritage and Townscape, or it could be the whole council, but maybe start with Heritage and Townscape because it's a smaller committee and we
can I
can do
ask-
a more intensive discussion.
Can I ask Harry, how long have you been on the council?
Sadly, since 2019.
In that time, has there been a paper on strategy for markets? Or?
I'm going to have to remember back a little bit now. There was, so this is more to do with Tony, which is, I was hoping to actually bump into him today. So if not, I can hopefully contact him after. But there was I think it's something like a market strategy working group of sorts, which were looking at this and then made recommendations to the council.
Well, as a point of fact, the town clerk then issued letters to the stallholders, which Christmas was it?
Christmas before the pandemic, 2019.
Saying to the stallholders, hereby give you notice of 2 weeks, 3 weeks, it's been brought back in house by the council.
Yeah.
But that must have come, if the town clerk did that and summarily handed out notices to the stallholders without final leave, that must have come from a decision of council to authorise her to do it.
Because it was Laura Fiddler, wasn't it, who handed
And
out
so it was 2019.
2019, it was Christmas 2019.
So the upshot of this discussion is that the buck stops with the council, and we need to bring a paper and talk to interested parties and develop some kind of plan and strategy and so
I
on.
would say though, because this will take forever,
No,
why don't we just, Martine, Jane, we'll go and talk to the traders, they could sign something, you find out who the contact is at Dover District Council, you present them with that information and say, this is what we'd like to do, here's a representative from Sandwich Town Council, can we get on with it?
I
And
would
Thursdays,
agree. I
yeah.
totally agree.
and Thursday's a really good day because I travel around a lot of the markets. There's a lot that are well established on the weekends. Thursday.
That's why we need to build on a Thursday market. You want to forget the Saturday market because I've tried that.
And
You've
there
got
are lots.
you need to build on the Thursday market, and at the moment I can't build on it if we're going to be in a car park because I don't know how much room we've got. But if we did go into Market Street, then you could build on it because you're in the middle of town and that would be a designated area, and you would find that I'd probably have a big waiting list of people that would want to come on a Thursday.
And Colin, to be fair, if we wait to do, Claire's meeting, and then we've got to wait again to get to Sandwich Town Council meeting, you are talking it'll be over by then. It doesn't work.
Unfortunately, road closure law doesn't allow it because the last time we asked for a 12 weeks in a road closure at Dull Street said, sorry, you can't, that becomes then a regular permanent closure, not an occasional. We have occasional closures of Market Street for festivals, but the advisory group at Open was very, very clear when we asked for it some years ago, the law doesn't allow for what you're asking for, although it turns out that Faversham probably do it for their markets, and they said, and the legal cost of progressing it to get any authorisation and signage is about £10,000. So whichever way you turn with anything, the street closures, the 4-metre rule, the safety advisory group, it's a complex process. It takes a long time.
But can you not actually go in and say, right, what we'd like to apply for is this occasional licence. It's going to be for 6 weeks, or we've got.
You could do it as a trial,
this
couldn't
amount
you?
of time because But I just think, what do we just give up then? Because going to this car park, and especially as I understand it, is it going to be at the back?
It's going to be where the old WI store is.
So it's there. We've got some of the plant hire is going to go there.
Yeah.
There where they've been building the doctor's surgery. So that's going to take up more car parking spaces. So it's not actually an ideal situation anyway. And if it, once I'm not disbelieving you, Steve, that they will turn you down. But if we don't try, is it not?
I just think you're going to find if we don't do something about it being in the car park, the town will die because people will do that. They will get out their car, they won't bother getting a ticket, they will get their fruit and veg and their eggs, and then they will get back in their car and they will drive off.
I'm quite agree with what Claire says. Let's get trying together and do bits and pieces. I'm more than happy if the council agrees for me to take the lead on that. As a council rep,
you can do both, can't you? Bottom up, top down.
The only thing is, as I said, Steve's right. When we do an event, the amount of paperwork and the event management plans and bits and pieces we have to do is immense. And I think to close a street for 6 weeks every Thursday, it's going to be a lot of hurdles to go over.
But we need to try it, don't we? We need to try because I just think with the market going into the car park, you've already got people saying now, last meeting that the car park and the market is dire. Once that market goes into that car park, not only will I see a reduction in my figures in St Peter's Church, but all these other businesses will, because nobody will come into town because they will just get their stuff and they will go.
I think you should also factor in the possibility that the market will collapse.
Yeah.
And you're going to have to try and
rebuild
restart it. I think it will
as
stop.
it is, I am offering discounted stall money. The stall holders that are coming, I've had to discount their pitch fees because I just can't see that they're going to make any money whatsoever, and I just think the whole of Sandwich will die. I think it was a very, very bad idea to put that market into the car park, and I think whoever's idea that was, I don't think they thought about it. And as I said, maybe 3 years ago, when you did have a fruit and veg shop in Market Street and you did have other shops that didn't want the market in there, that's fine 3 years ago, but we've moved on now and we've got new people in those shops. We haven't got a fruit and veg shop. We've got the spa, but we haven't got a proper fruit and veg shop. So we've moved on from there. So surely we should have had a consultation maybe a year ago about where this market should go, not just, well, Anne-Marie, I'm sorry, it's going in the car park.
Throughout the 1980s and 90s, the market was in the market car park, but also think back then you didn't have pay parking.
No.
And that made a significant difference.
Okay, look, we've spent half an hour talking about the market, which isn't, it's not, it's part of the tourist offer, but it's not what we're here for primarily. So can we move on with that and say that Claire and her group will look at promoting the market as it is But in terms of the longer term strategy, we need to talk
Yeah.
within the council
Yeah.
about, you know, the decision on the Market Street, for example, and maybe investing in equipment for the future. Once, because the refurb of the square is a kind of opportunity, isn't it, to relaunch the whole thing at some point. Anything else on the minutes?
Just one point. Will they be allowing vehicles on the forecourt?
When the forecourt's complete, no.
No.
That market traders won't like that.
They're not allowed there at the moment.
But they
They're
are.
only to unload.
Only to load.
Oh yeah, so will they allow vehicles?
We'll be there later, I'll load and unload, but it won't be able to stay there.
That's a change as well, and a welcome one.
Anything else on the minutes? Okay. Should we move on? Right. The
You
next
did
item-
invite me, Colin.
Yeah, I did. No, it's good you're here. Update on public conveniences, right? Harry.
Yes, no, thanks for putting me so high up on the agenda as well. I'm not sure how long I'll be able to stay. So yeah, I'm going to monologue for a little bit. Partly obviously for Heritage and Townscape, we obviously have Council Monday, just to go through a bunch of things, and then I'll be really happy to have as much feedback as possible, and I'll make notes based on that. So yeah, asked to pop by after a meeting Monday, talk briefly about toilets at the quay. What was it? Yeah, so step one, what's the purpose of looking at the quay toilets? Why are we re-examining this after what was decided on the circa a year or two ago? However, before I begin, can everybody raise their hands, please? I'm not doing a magic trick, don't worry. Can you lower them if you've never used the quay toilets before?
Lower them if you've never used them.
Yeah, so keep them up if you
If you have used them, keep your hand up.
And then lower them if you have not used them since the pandemic.
Since the pandemic.
Yeah. That's interesting. So one thing I do want to look at is usage
And
numbers.
which ones? Only kill these.
The key.
Just the key.
Just the key.
Just the key. So that's interesting. So obviously some things have changed during the pandemic, but just more information I need to try and include. Yeah, so council asked me to look at options for the key toilets. Currently, the central section, as you may have seen, is not in use at the moment. You have a disabled toilet to one side, and then you have the shower block and toilet to the other side, which are contactless card operated. Pass this around, I'll leave it back, I'm afraid. So, pass around. So this red central area is currently not in use. Yeah, so I mentioned about disabled toilet on one side, shower toilet section on the other part that have been opened, contactless card mechanisms which charge per use, partly to cover the cost of running the toilets, as well as supplies and dealing with vandalism, which is quite a bit of a problem. The small income that we receive from this still means we're roughly looking forward to about £16,000 in costs, I want to say, from our forecast we received the other week. Yeah, contactless card mechanism was selected by full council a few years back. There have been downsides. While it has actually saved money overall, it's still not perfect. It can be frustrating to use, it can lock sometimes, and not everybody has a contactless card. It also doesn't work well with the multi-bathroom central area, the red section, as we currently have the layout for the centre. Again, at the time it was a great idea, but obviously we should probably try and do a bit better if we can. So hence why council asked to look at the options, maybe whether a coin-operated version was better, or whether the people of Sandwich would prefer them to be free, but of course they're all willing to do to make that happen. So yeah, step two, feedback and understanding on what is wanted and what is possible. So been tasked to try and pull together A, what the public and the businesses want, and B, what is financially possible. We could open the toilets for longer opening hours, and of course this necessitates extra cost for staff and additional cleaning, plus greater risk of vandalism. We could also make them free, then of course that would cost the public purse more, which could be spent elsewhere. So you're depriving the income from that set of costs. So I think the forecasted income from the current setup is about £4,000 for the coming year. So you'll probably increase the current outlay of costs to about £20,000. We could also try and improve the central red space you see in the map, as well as doing the changing places grant we discussed on Monday. However, we're currently going back and to find out a bit more whether that's match funded, exactly how that's going to work. Then of course there'll be additional costs on top of that. And of course if you do that, then you're also stopping other options potentially coming to the table. Ideally, one of these three things, improving the facilities, making it free, or longer opening hours, if we can achieve at least one of them, then it's a success. But yeah, so I want to hear from the public.
Doesn't it success if you improve the facilities but they're not open?
Well, yeah, so if you're able to improve the central, so one of the main reasons this central section isn't open is because it's a multi-bathroom layout. If you had this change in places grant, if we were to agree to it, the work was to happen, you'd just need, whether it was a contactless card mechanism or something else, or potentially other ways. But let me quickly press on. Yeah, so to begin with, emailing local organisations, so Medieval Centre, Heritage Harbour, GDC, P22, others, to see what their opinions and intentions are with regards to the key toilets. It also include businesses nearby. It would be good to see if we could see potentially additional funding or assistance, but I think that's probably the least likely option. Again, finding a way of contacting the public at large. Again, it's one of the reasons why I'm along here today, to speak to everybody and gather feedback. If I do either have to pop off too quickly or we end up getting a long conversation and what you want to say, as it said, email me, preferably through my councillor email. And then step 3 is to present viable options with a recommendation. So bringing all this together, I want to present council and of course Heritage and Townscape with options, hopefully with which is most popular and which are most possible. So there was a proposal before to make part of the building a small business, which would then bring in a certain amount of income, with part of the agreement being they would maintain these toilets, make them free to the public, and then open for longer as well. However, this was a proposal 2 years ago. I'm not sure if it's still going to be taken up. Yeah, so most of all, want the feedback, want to hear what you've got to say, happy to answer questions about anything, or just write down whatever you've got to say. Yeah, thanks for inviting me.
Christina?
Apart from this evening, how are you going to collect the views of the public?
So, different ways. I understand there are various, what was it, we were talking about business voices. So the Chamber of Commerce I see does an email, I know other organisations do, put it on there, ask for feedback. I would prefer, if possible, and I'll have to check if I can actually do this, is to do a poll which would be going on various council social media accounts. So I presume Facebook is the one we have. Just asking if people can fill it out. I've been trying to think of different options that would go on this. So of course you have, what is your preference for the key toilets? How often do you use them? Just absolutely everything I can think of. I've been writing down various options while I have my lunch break today at work. So yeah, just involve the public as much as possible in any way possible, as well as speaking directly to the businesses and organisations.
I would say that there are quite a good number of members of the public that don't use Facebook, so I think we need various ways of gathering those views.
Well, the people who would want to use the toilets are large visitors, not Sandwich residents. Sandwich residents know how to work around it. Sandwich residents know there isn't a facility there. The reason I haven't used it since the pandemic is I know it's probably closed.
You know where you live.
I know this one's open, I know I'm going to be bad hotel for some. The people who really want it are the ones you can't consult, because they're the people who are going to come into town and see a sign that says toilets, I'm desperate, what do I do next? And that's why the Medieval Centre gets so many requests, what do I do? Where do I go?
This is why I'm keen to talk to organisations as well.
Sorry, when you were talking, you asked about earlier about putting our hands up and down with respect to, since COVID and so on. COVID was typical in as much as everyone could go for a walk, and there were families walking, and they were desperate for the toilets, especially on the quay because they'd come past right around the river. They were out for the day. Now, they weren't people who, yes, they were visitors, but they weren't long-term tourists because no one was allowed to drive that far. You could go for a walk, but you weren't supposed to drive. So these were local-ish people who could walk into the town and walk around. And the toilets were not open, and people were absolutely desperate. The elderly, the disabled, children. I mean, we water the beds at the quay, and I can tell you what was found in those beds was appalling. So there is a real necessity, and also what I don't understand, are you saying there's a £16,000 deficit once you've got to the end of the year in what is being spent?
We have our forecast. I don't have the exact document on me today, but speaking from memory, currently, and that's with the £4,000 income, we have a deficit of £16,000.
Okay, because I wasn't sure. And the other thing
it was
is
30,000.
The other thing is that the toilets are they do need to be open. In my opinion, having been down there and talked to people down there, they need to be open and they need to be accessible toilets. If the toilets that go wrong, I mean, talk about vandalism. I'm sure there is out of hours type vandalism, but a lot of vandalism comes from people doing this on the door
Exactly.
because they try desperately to get in. And you're right, people don't want to use a card because for some of those contactless cards, they get charged if they put it on and aren't spending over a certain amount. And I've heard people say, I'm not doing that. So, you know, they've got to be open. You also were picking up a cost, I believe, for cleaning the toilets, which was far more regular during once COVID opened up and people were allowed to use it. I thought they were closing them every 2 hours to get them cleaned.
So they're currently cleaned twice a day.
Yeah, but there was a period there where you would have been picking up a bigger cost.
Yeah, let's not talk about costs
can
in
I
the future.
can I ask people to be succinct and because we need to get through this meeting, otherwise we're going to spend all night
I
talking
just
about.
wanted to say that there was a very helpful paper attached to the last meeting at Heritage and Townscape about the full costs of running the old system and running the new system. And actually the difference, bottom line, turned out to be £7,000. We're paying £7,000 less now than we did before, but it nevertheless creates terrific uproar and people don't like the system now. So that's why we set up this working group in Harry Saxon's team. So we don't need to go through these figures. You just need to look at that attachment because it lays it out very clearly.
But also the facilities manager was spending a lot of his time going down there because the technology was bust.
Yeah.
And you know, it's pointless having a facility that's not open.
In terms of the demand for this facility, rather than taking any soundings, kind of just look at the figures that were available some years ago that Caroline Quinell and staff used to keep. Do you have access to those? So
I can find them.
the factual usage figures show the high demand.
Claire.
Well, succinctly, as a mother with 4 children, we travel around a lot. I'm going somewhere, there's one I particularly can think of at Dumpton Gap. It is literally just metal, floor to ceiling, they hose pipe it, it does the job. It might cost a lot of money, it's open from 8 until 8. Yes, a changing places is a really good idea and they are absolutely key. People want them. But I guess we would need to think about where that should be. Should it be somewhere else? Does it need to be at the quay? And my thoughts would be at the quay, we need about 10 cubicles that are jet washed and open for 12 hours a day.
So in terms of the change in places stuff, excuse me, so this originally came to the council, I want to say a few months before Christmas, and originally looking across, what was it, Cattle Market at the bottom of Guildhall. However, I think it wasn't feasible, so they ended up looking at the quay. And I hadn't realised actually until this time that there's a certain central section and how much we'd have to take up for the thing. So I remember going in there years ago, excuse me, but in terms of, if I'm thinking about the overall cost to the council for different ideas, let's say we've got idea 1, we just make them free. That's obviously going to entail a little bit more cost. We do the changing places thing, we've got a fantastic grant, potentially for £50,000, however there's going to be money on top of that, which is of course going to be one big old outlay and then we lose potentially other cubicles, or if maybe this business idea was ever going to be popular, or tender, again there's time, everything else. Basically, I want to try and get them open as long as possible, so the current closing time is circa about like 5 o'clock.
That's crazy.
Yeah, so I asked about why it wouldn't be done later, and while it could be, that would then necessitate another wash, so it'd be cleaned up 3 times a day, and then somebody has to obviously be staff-wise there to clear it up. One thing that popped up the other day, we literally had folk an hour yesterday, and obviously you've got the Cattle Market toilets, they close at a certain time. We should therefore speak to councillors, like if one of our volunteers during the folk an hour, for example during the weekend, is willing to actually close those toilets later on in the evening, then why don't we try and keep them open for longer? So one thing we definitely need to do is keep them open longer for events. When people are using them, when there's hundreds of people down there delivering about 1,000 ducks into the water, somebody's going to want to go to the bathroom. So yeah, it's just about getting as much feedback from everybody as much as possible, At the end of this, we might find, and we've just got to take the hit, we've got to do it. But we then got to think about budget-wise, how we're going to take that out somewhere else.
Just from a tourism perspective, the question is a question, have we got sufficient lavatories in the town? Bearing in mind that years ago we had facilities on the train station, which are now not accessible for most of the day. We had the lavatory block where the ice cream parlour is now, plus the two others. So that's another question that needs to be asked. Have we got sufficient? Especially with the Cowleys Meadows being used as a car park, you know, for events.
Is there a case for having a sex difference? Because you could just have a urinal on the quay and therefore free up space in men's toilets. You know, men can generally pee anywhere, but if they need to, they can find somewhere.
This conversation sounds totally ridiculous to me. Sandwich Town Council is sitting on millions of pounds, and you're worried about having staff like we used to have in the toilets. That's what we need. We need the ladies back in the toilet like we had before. It wasn't broken. Why did you try and fix it? I understand that we have to save money here, there, and everywhere. We've just been given a big legacy as well. The place is rolling in money. You know, we don't have to waste money, but we can use it. This is what the remit of the Tollbridge Fund is for, is to serve the people of Sandwich. And quite honestly, as far as I'm concerned, the Town Council isn't doing that for a lot of the time. We're paying salaries and all sorts of shenanigans going on as far as I can see. This is what we need to do. We need to get them toilets open and we need to pay for it.
Sorry, can I also just ask one last question? I thought the meeting last time, and certainly at the meeting, one of the town team meetings in November, we were told that DDC were upgrading all the toilets, Dover, Deal and Sandwich. So is that definitely happening?
So, as part of this, obviously, so when this discussion popped up actually, weirdly enough, I was around the medieval centre when we had the Hood and Horse, the Hood. Either way, it was fun. Then obviously with Heritage and Townscape, this is where this conversation starts up again. The person I need to speak to at Dover District Council, the cabinet member, has just lost his father. So essentially, I've arranged a meeting with him as soon as he's back. At which point, my first question is basically that. So when are we getting ours? If that's the case, I actually want to see the insides of these toilets as well, because it's been a little while. It's the first question on my list, basically. However, one thing, very quickly, sorry. What was it? The common practice they've been adopting is that local town councils will be looking after the toilets in their town. So hopefully, it'd be wonderful if we can get a refurb, but they certainly won't be looking after them long term instead of us. Okay, sorry.
Just very quickly, I had messaged a while back with Councillor Friend, and he said that they were on the list, but he couldn't give me any indication of when. I would also like to support Councillor Morehouse's comment with regard to have we got enough toilets, because there are times when revellers, for the most part, have been seen relieving themselves along the rope walk, in flower displays and so forth, and that's really not on. And actually, if they're parking in Cowleys Meadow, then that could actually be quite a long walk, especially if they've had, if they've, you know, been drinking a fair amount. It's quite a long walk to the car.
In there for events.
There will be.
I don't know.
It's been spoken about,
Yeah, on Cowleys Meadow.
Yes, and we used it for Folk Air last year.
Yeah. Just 2 points. Seven Post Alley is used as a substitute for toilets. I walk along it at least twice a day, and it's really disgusting. So it's very, I think the evidence, the anecdotal evidence is that we don't have enough and we can't get into them. But secondly, this refurbishment slightly worries me, because Claire has talked about, you know, there are some loos where you can just go in and hose them down. So we want to have a say in what they're going to do with this refurbishment, because some refurbishments obviously mean that the maintenance costs will be lower than other refurbishments. So we need to have a say in what they're doing.
And an additional disabled toilet, please, because there isn't one here. We have got one on the quay, but there isn't one here.
Yeah. I'd like to pick up also what John said. If you are going to get another fund, from the bequest, it should be looked at. I mean, those funds are there to support anything to do with Sandwich people, Sandwich Town, that helps Sandwich people, Sandwich Town. And this is an obvious example. And there don't seem to be any channels to explore that, and there should be.
The Georgina Maddox Memorial Toilets.
Yes. She'd have been highly amused by them.
I think she'd be really pleased if her estate led us to a significant upgrade.
Yeah.
Just to add a bit of weight to what Steve just said, as Georgina was such a strong supporter of the event in Sandwich,
Yeah.
it would be quite fitting that some of the
Yeah.
fund was used for.
Okay. So, to conclude, Harry is leading a one-man working group on this, and he will be reporting to the council, seeking views, and then reporting to the Heritage Committee.
Remember, I do, as long as I get to call it what I want.
Yes.
I'm fully behind that.
Okay, but yeah, any other feedback whatsoever, please forward it to my council email address. I generally read that sort of in the evening most days. So yeah, thank you so much, guys. I'll stick around as long as I can, but I may have to pop up in the middle. I apologise.
Harry, can I just quickly suggest perhaps you could put something up for people on the notice board outside the Guildhall to contact you, because there will be people that won't be on social media and they won't be aware.
Or maybe stick a poster on each of the public toilets.
Yes.
Good. Well, that's a good idea. That is a good idea.
So use the bushes round the corner.
Tell us your views.
This is where John lives.
Okay, can we move on? Next item is Chamber of Commerce update from Richard Harris. Richard can't come tonight, unfortunately, but I did have a meeting with him the other day. So what's happened is the new Chamber of Commerce has formed or revived, and they're trying to set up committees to look at tourism in the wider sense. So they're very keen to work with the council, with anyone who's interested, the Compass Group. What I've said to Richard is obviously the Chamber, it needs to be a representative business body so that people like the Town Council, DDC, have a group that they can go to where they can get a business response and not just an individual's response. Or
Richard was here earlier.
yeah, he couldn't come in.
You're on this today, aren't
He's
you?
had
I'm part of the Chamber of Commerce, yeah, but not.
He's had quite a day.
Yeah, it's not.
Sorry, what do you mean not
So I'm co-opted, so I haven't got no voting rights, but I can say my piece if I need to.
So is it an official Chamber of Commerce?
Yes, there is. So the.
But you don't know that.
I don't know who's the chair.
It's all a secret.
Is it?
So all I know is Richard Harris is the vice chair of it.
So how do they get elected?
So it goes through, I think it was, I'm not sure if they have, don't quote me, I'm not sure if they've had an AGM or not. It was David Shaw for the Highway Computers is still chair, Richard Harris is vice chair.
It's worse than the Masons, I think.
Yeah.
There was a meeting of the Chamber last week, on Monday I think, I went to it, in the Fleur, but there was sort of, few people were invited, I was one, but
If you go on Friday afternoon for the open stuff, the Chamber of Commerce committee will be there.
Well, I can tell you that I haven't been asked to pay a subscription for many years.
Yeah.
And that's, I don't know if you have.
No.
So, says it all.
So what I said to Richard when I met him was that, we're happy to work with them, but they need to be wearing out their shoe leather, talking to businesses and signing people up, because it's no good dealing with a group that's only 3 or 4 people. You need to believe that they fully represent the business community. So when we have all these controversial topics like, closing Market Street, pedestrianisation, all these kind of things, you need to, planning applications, it's good to have a view from the business community and not several different views. A unified view, a democratic view is very important for the business community.
There was some misconception that the Tourist Committee was only set up. This working group was only set up to establish whether or not we should have the Tourist Information Centre in the Guildhall or somewhere else. And I did actually go back to Councillor Friend to say that was not what this was set up for. This was a holistic tourist group. So I thought that unless they sort of joined forces or we worked together, nothing was going to happen, because it could be going off in opposite directions.
I mean, the town council will work with anyone who's,
Correct.
acting in
Yeah.
good faith.
Is this the last of the meetings of this group, or is it an ongoing
I
thing?
think there might be one more, and then the aim is that it's a working group, so working groups are time limited.
6 months time frame, isn't it?
6
That's
months
what I thought. So who
maximum.
takes over after this?
To go, what happens? So the 6 months expires, and then then it has to go back to council whether to continue or not.
All this
No,
working.
that's not right.
It's going
That's
first.
not right. I wrote the terms of reference for working groups. Working groups are normally looking at particular issues, and actually, Carol, this working group was set up to look at where the tourist information, what the tourist information
Primarily.
offer should be, and we're talking about tourist information, not tourism. But it obviously, people are very interested in tourism, so it's become a wider group, which doesn't do any harm, but nevertheless, the brief of this working group is to report back to Heritage and Townscape with recommendations about tourist information and how that should be offered and the costs involved, the comparative costs. Working groups have normally a maximum life of 6 months, so they don't turn into committees. They're not committees, they are actually looking at particular issues in an intensive way and in a public participatory way. So when this working group has done its business, which I hope it will do soon, and report back to Heritage and Townscape in March about tourist information and how most efficiently to offer that and most effectively, then we may turn our mind to something else, like, for example, the market, and have a working group on the market and how we can best offer an attractive
Right,
market.
but with respect, Claire, the tourism is a major issue. So okay, I get where you how
Yes,
the group was
it's
set up.
been
That wasn't my
flexible.
understanding, but I get where it was
No,
set
it is.
up. Having said that, tourism is going to be a real big feature for Sandwich if we are going to revive Sandwich moving forward.
Yes.
So one recommendation from this group, this working group, might well be that the tourist working, whether we call it a working group or a tourist organisational committee, should be set up in the way it was previously, so that tourism can be constantly reviewed, money can be found, opinions can be found, and we actually move the whole thing forward. Otherwise, it's we lost the tourist committee from before, whatever that achieved then. I mean, we've heard a few things from Steve in the last meeting, I believe. So, that to me, tourism is not just something that stops after a small working group. It's got to continue. It's got to have life, and all the people that want Sandwich to survive and grow and bring people in, whether it's local people as well as tourism, we need to know how that's going to work, and we need something set up to achieve that.
So the terms of reference for the new Heritage and Townscape Committee explicitly talk about it being responsible for tourism.
Yes.
So tourism comes to the Heritage and Townscape Committee.
Yes.
This working group is time limited. We'll have maybe one meeting, maybe two. I will then try to collate all the diverse opinions, statistics, you name it, and come up with a report that will go to the Heritage and Townscape Committee with clear recommendations.
That's a council committee, isn't it?
Yes.
Yes.
So nobody can sit on that other than councillors.
No, we can co-opt people, and I'm asking
There's co-optees.
right now for co-opting.
Okay.
Can I make a comment then about this working group? That means we've been spending time this evening talking about markets and toilets which aren't to do with information, but we haven't been talking about the town guide, the town trail, the what's in the Sandwich leaflets, which are all information. We haven't talked about social media. We haven't talked again about the integrated strategy to pull all the information flows together. We haven't progressed, as I said earlier, the idea of a pop-up. We haven't talked about working with WACS and Visit Kent. All of these things are information. They are part of the remit. But actually, at the first meeting, the reason at the very first meeting, this working group, we broadened the agenda because we had that conversation to say information isn't only about the location of that office. It's about all these other things. And if we should be talking about information, we should be going back to these before we finished.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm keen to get back to the idea of pop-up understand what the strategy is for working with Visit Kent, WACTA, who's sitting on it, if anybody, do we even attend the WACTA meetings? I don't think we do. Is anybody looking at the town guide anymore? That's information. Is anybody talking about distributing the day and sandwich leaflets to the wider audience that we used to do? I don't know if that happens anymore. These are the things that we could and should be talking about
Well,
today.
I'm assuming everyone on this working group has read those various leaflets and
No idea.
documents.
I don't even know they're being produced now.
I mean, maybe at the next meeting we could have a discussion and just have a list of all the various leaflets, visitor guides, because it's not just the council who produces those. There's Medieval Centre, there's Town Trails, Heritage, White Mills, all these different bodies produce a tourist leaflet of some kind, or a website of some kind.
Some
So maybe we need a kind of
together.
an audit of all
Would help.
those documents for the next meeting.
I find this all extremely confusing. There seem to be all these different groups overlapping. There doesn't seem to be a strategy anywhere, as far as I
Well,
can see.
that's
I'm-
what this.
I'm
Heritage
thinking
Council.
about the employees in a tourist information role, and I can see that sort of the figures and so on, that's to do with, that's reactive, that's people coming to them, but perhaps part of the role of those employees could actually relate to the leaflets and things that are going out, and actually promoting, doing more promotional work,
Well,
rather than just being reactive.
to be frank, I think one of the problems we have at the moment is we don't have an officer, a person, a volunteer, anyone who's in charge of tourism overall. Making sure that leaflets are in the fleur or the
You have.
market in.
You've got Kerry downstairs.
Kerry,
Kerry downstairs does all the tourist information stuff.
she's got a dual role, hasn't she, Kerry? She mans the tourist information office, doesn't she?
Yes.
But she's also an admin
Yes.
person in the
Yes,
office,
she
and
does
so to what degree is she available
I mean,
to
she
promote
does.
the town?
Just
She
remember one thing, that at the moment currently it's winter, so we don't get hardly any tourists in.
Yeah.
One. Two, we haven't got the volunteers to cover it, and it's winter anyway, so it's on a lesser hours of it opening. In the summer, I'm sure Kerry and whoever works with her, the chief executive, the finance officer, etc., will get more volunteers in, more people to walk the streets that they have done in the summer to do it. But at the moment, it's the winter, and so they're only open at certain hours. But yes, Kerry does do it. I've seen Kerry out and about giving.
But how can
giving
you
her
say that
leaflets.
we've not got any visitors when I've had so many visitors from abroad and from other parts of the country coming to the church over January? How can you say we don't have visitors?
I mean, Dean, I know Kerry does that work, but what I'm talking about is someone who's much more proactive. Who's reaching out, publicising the town, reaching out to coach companies, linking up the local history society with coach parties, etc., etc. So
But we used to do all of these things.
Yes.
What year was Veronica Liotte mayor? So
2018.
2007.
At that time, the tourism committee coordinated all these things.
Yeah.
So underneath the tourism committee, while she was mayor, we had a working group to write to the town guide, to work with professional designers, to do the leaflets, to actually invent the district leaflets, then got distributed through professional companies. That was all coordinated under the mayor's committee through the town staff. It worked. It worked. And then it's always
2018.
run away.
Can I just, where does it say on the door or anywhere near the entrance that is where the visitors information centre is?
They normally put flags outside, the big long pole
Well,
flags. and
yeah,
stuff.
but it's just, that's not enough.
It's not
It's
enough,
just,
is
it's
it?
just
We've
not
had a
enough.
year when absolutely, to be fair, even when we say we're open, they're not open.
True.
The weekend doors are not open, and they've said they've been out.
Just remember, Carol, for the
I'm
last
not-
few months, there's been a really short increase of staff in the guild board.
I'm not,
Nobody's
I'm trying to
criticising.
ignore- I'm really trying to ignore all of that. Either we've got a facility that says the Tourist Information Office is open at these hours,
Yes,
and
which there
it's
is.
manned,
Yes.
and actually, unfortunately, for lots of reasons which I'm not touching on, that hasn't happened. It didn't happen last summer. It didn't happen during winter, and I would also dispute that we do not need this open during the winter. We desperately need it open during the winter. This is why these people have got no footfall. We've got to find a way of bringing tourism back in, bringing the local communities back in, and if that means going back to a proper, well I say going, if it means, if that requirement is because we need a proper committee to meet on a quarterly or regular basis to get tourism back on the table properly, then that's what we need to do. And as far as I'm concerned, it's one of the only recommendations that almost needs to come from
Just to put it clearly, there was a tourism committee.
Yeah, we know. I'm not
until
going
they were
backwards.
abolished.
I'm not going backwards.
So it could well be a recommendation. I mean,
Yes.
it comes under Heritage and Townscape. If the view of this working group is that that's too big a task for that committee and it needs to be delegated to a subcommittee, then that's the recommendation.
I've been on tourism committee since inception. I haven't been called to a meeting that's actually happened for 3 years.
Well, exactly.
3 years.
I know
So
I did
we're
email
at ground zero. aren't we?
Colin, what I would say, and children in universities, we've spent the last few years touring England, having holidays in England. I never look for a tourist information office. I look everything up online. So that's where we need to be active. Social media. Martine, one might be saying her footfall isn't effective. She's really super active on social media.
So are we.
If I want to go to, if I want to go to Margate, to the Old Town Traders over there, I look them up on social media. One might be open on Thursday, one might be open on Tuesday. We don't need any of that. We just need a vision and something that is current, not talking about COVID, not talking about whatever
happened.
The
We
future.
just need a tourist information centre that's accessible and open. That's just what we
You
need.
also need a social media strategy.
Yeah, I mean, but social media strategy as well. But I'm just
Well, you haven't
saying,
got one.
we need a tourist information centre that is open and people know where it is.
Okay,
That's what we need.
Yeah, so I think you're all in agreement. You're obviously looking at it from very different perspectives. Dragging us slightly back, and I do think a tourism committee of some form is definitely a good idea. As well as you can then get your decision makers from various parts of Kent in. I can't remember all the different people we had at the time when I was elected.
Visit Kent and Waxford, the two obvious ones.
Exactly. So they were all able to attend, that was good. However, yeah, so bring it back to online stuff. Definitely all of that. However, the one thing I've got a question about, and this came up at council when we were discussing about the Hive. So I understand, what was it, the current tourist information section, some people are happy with, some people aren't happy with. The alternative location was sort of the Hive, the front section, where we've currently got the PCSO and the community warden. And of course, we're now chasing up to go and see, because they're wondering, are they going to use this space for next year?
Yeah.
Because of course, that's an essential commodity as well. I think, I know I'm going to have to run in a second, but we need to decide what you guys want.
So that's the next item on the agenda, but so I suppose we could come on to that. I've checked with the museum coordinator. From what we can gather, there's no legal agreement which says that that space has to be used by a museum extension.
Are you talking about where the information centre used to be?
Yes.
I was talking to the mayor this afternoon, and I said that a lot of people felt it should go back there, and he said we can't because we've been given a grant for that to be part of the museum, and we'd have to pay the grant back.
That's not the
I think
case.
ever so slightly separate.
Okay, with the mayor.
Well, the mayor says that, but the museum manager says there is no.
Separate.
Well, okay, fair enough.
Ever so slightly separate to that, the point I'm getting at is more the reality of what we have on the ground at the moment. We've obviously got the PCSO, I think it's the community warden and another gentleman who are currently using it. And they've written to us at the end of, I think it was the end of the talk, agenda. They're asking, well,
Can they carry on?
yeah, and that's obviously a big thing we want to continue. We can't turf them out, I think they're needed.
The PCSO is leaving in June. We're not going to have one anymore.
March.
March.
I mean, that's not insurmountable, but I think that space, I mean, there is a lot of people who I've consulted with the letter and so on who say they would like to see the tourist office go back there.
Yeah.
Other people say, well, there's now buses outside, there's the weddings, you know, it affects it. The other option is a retail unit in the town, and the other third option is St Peter's Church, which I've spoken to Anne-Marie about, and to me that would seem she gets 2,000 people in January.
Yeah, we do.
Well, you know, we get.
Well, I mean,
two.
we're a tourist information office on a Saturday and Sunday when they're closed anyway, because the amount of people on Sunday, and I'm sorry, Dean, that you say there's no visitors, but my figures on a Sunday and the amount of people that come in on a Sunday through the winter are virtually all visitors. I mean, the first thing they do is pick up a map for when they come in, then they'll ask me what else they can do in Sandwich, and I'll say, well, there's a map for the medieval centre, or you can go down to the quay, and they might ask me what they want, where can they go to eat, and they might ask me about why these houses are called this, or and that's the thing, isn't it? You know, but if you're going to, I mean, I'm happy, and the Church Conservation Trust is happy to have a tourist information centre in the church, but what do you want out of it? If you're talking about having a telephone line in, and you're talking about a website, then I can't, and my volunteers can't facilitate that because we haven't got the time to do that. If you're talking about having a tourist information in St Peter's Church with all your leaflets, and my volunteers, when people come in, they take a leaflet and they say to me or my volunteers, oh, what can we do in Sandwich, or where can we go, then that is perfectly fine.
But we are so old-fashioned and off the pace here, because as Claire was saying, we're years behind. Last time I went to Rye, which wasn't a very long time ago, the reason I can tell you there were 10 taxi campuses in Rye, because before I went on the visit, I looked at the website of the facilities that I was interested in. Obviously, while you're there, you might be more interactive and other different types of social media, but a basic information giving website we don't have.
No.
And we never have done.
And the thing is,
for reasons I won't go into, and we still, after all these years of talking about it, don't have any strategy for using social media, either static information given from the website or interactive.
Who do you mean by we?
The council.
I mean,
tourism is not just about Sandwich Town.
No,
but the Sandwich Council owns the responsibility.
But
Sandwich
why?
Town
I mean,
has a website, and Sandwich Town Council has a page that says tourist information, and on it is virtually nothing.
And I mean, I most of the time, I'm getting in touch with White Cliffs tourists on social media. I'm telling them what's happening in Sandwich, and they're putting things on that I've told them, like the lights around the church or something, or the festivals, or what we're doing. So I'll just message them on social media, and then all of a sudden they're putting it on their page. Well, surely if that should be tourism, Sandwich Town Council should be telling the White Cliffs country what is going on in Sandwich, not somebody who's just messaging them on Facebook and saying, can you please put this on because we're having this event.
Going back years, the Fielders used to do some work for the council, and they've created a site, I think it's called Open Sandwich, and that lists the festivals. It also, there's lots of information about the town. It's got the town's businesses listed there as well, and that's been there for a long time, but it's not publicised very much. But actually it's a really interesting site.
The council pay Fielders to manage part of that information.
They do it for free at the moment. It's a showcase site.
I think the council still pays them. Then there was another company called Visit Sandwich. It was a company, and then for some years our Community Events Association website had this information because we did it, also as volunteers, because of the lack of a proper centralised putting all together strategy. And it's like we said at our first meeting of this group, you need a strategy. You've got to pull all these things together.
Well, it's fine having a strategy, but you need a manager to implement it.
Well,
a proactive manager.
Well, I mean, yes, but there are several different ways of organising that, and that's not that difficult. You know, you can do any combination you want to of councillors and staff and volunteers. You just look at the way you want to do it. It's not a stopper. Just work it out. And a few years ago we had one model. Now you'd have a slightly different model. It's not difficult.
So anyway, St Peter's is an option.
If it's
something we would need to.
If it's just a option of people come in, get leaflets, and we tell them about the town, that is that. But we can't facilitate websites, and we can't facilitate phone lines, phone calls coming in, because I haven't got the people to do that.
If there was a separate, if there was a separate, kiosk or something within the church.
Yes, that would work.
Which we could not employ, but have volunteers, different volunteers, with a coordinator, a paid coordinator. I don't think
you need a paid coordinator. I think the whole idea is, if you're going to have a tourist information, so you're either going to pay for people that actually work for tourist information, or you just get volunteers that love Sandwich and want to do it because they love Sandwich. You know, if you're going to pay somebody to be a tourist information person, then that person has got to be that tourist, the face of Sandwich, hasn't it? And so you've got to pay that person, and that means that they've got to.
That's impossible 7 days a week. So
exactly.
unless you have 2 or 3 of them, but if you had a paid coordinator to coordinate the volunteers to make sure there was always every rota was filled, that would be a different matter.
Yeah, very quickly. What was it? There's the agenda. What was it? Yeah, responses to consultation. I'm really sorry, I've got to pop out.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'd love to hear more about that as well. And yeah, let me know how I can assist. And any ideas about toilets, let me know.
Very.
Well, can we move on? I think if we try and finish within the next half hour.
I'm going to have to go as well because I've got the other 3 in the morning.
Okay. Thanks. Dean we were going to talk about. It's maybe something for the next agenda about
just
reaching out to coach
just
companies.
quickly, because I'm a coach driver, everyone knows that. I know quite a lot of the coach companies within Kent. So my plan is to do, if we can, with working with the Heritage Townscape Committee, is to do like some form of brochure about Sandwich to go to the coach companies that bring tourists in here. So like Just Go Travel, Alpha Travel, Shearings, all the others, and then send
We've
it
done
to them.
that. We've done that.
Year in, year out.
Yeah, I take all the brochures down to the Hotel Bursting before the season starts, so that the people can get them at the
This
coach.
is also to try and promote Sandwich, they can do like specific trips here as well. So.
Yeah, we used to go to the group travel shows as well with these Jane Sandwich leaflets. I still get emails from, are you going to come to the group travel show this year in London? We used to do all of these things. And the difference between the town guide is for people who arrived here. The single sheet A4 a day in Sandwich is so you can throw it out to people who haven't yet come here, including coach companies, to say, come to Sandwich, we've got these things. It's a short version, it's to promote people to come to Sandwich, it's not to give them information when they arrive here. And that's an important difference that we worked out years ago. Now, I don't even know whether it's been produced or not. We used to do it to volunteers to produce that. The council gave money for the print, but the volunteers did the production.
But this is what we were going to discuss, is getting something new to be presented.
We need updated probably.
Yeah.
So maybe at the next meeting we could kind of try and go through all of these different disparate leaflets, which, are they still in use? Are they up to date? Are they?
I think we need to move on from leaflets. Leaflets are valuable when people are here, but if people think, I'm visiting East Kent, they're sending a sandwich, we need to have a really amazing website.
Yeah. But it needs to be continually updated, like daily, or even it can't be weekly or monthly. It's got to be daily. It's got to be done. You've got to do it every day, even if you just put like a snippet of information. It's fresh and it always pops up people's news feeds.
It needs to be in the hands of a paid.
Exactly.
Yes.
Someone set
Yeah.
Yes.
It's also about wider publicity. I mean, someone sent me this from the Times. You can't read it, but it's Hip Hotels, Art and Vineyards. Why Kent is the new Suffolk, and it's got all these places listed: Deal, Margate, Whitecliffs, so on and so on. Wingham, the Dog at Wingham, up down near Deal, and Sandwich isn't mentioned. So how do we get?
Yeah, that's
Sandwich?
because what that thing there. Because I work in tourism, so let me tell you how that's happened. So what would have happened is they would have approached various businesses or various things, and they would have said, we're doing an article in the Telegraph, we're going to do an article about you, would you like to be included? This is how much it's going to be. And that's what they've done. That is a paid, although it doesn't look, that is a paid advert. Yeah.
It's editorial and used in salutation.
Yeah, that's it. And that's what happens. So what you need to do is you need to get in touch. I mean, Dean was saying about I get in touch with coach because I get in touch with coach companies all the time, and I've got all the information, and I can say this quite frankly that when I approached the council and said, would you like my list of all the coach companies that you can approach who make Sandwich part of their destination when they do Canterbury, then they go to Sandwich, then they go to Margate. I said, would you like my list? I was categorically told that no, we don't want your list, we don't need it.
Who told you?
That was 2 years ago.
Who?
The person at the front of the desk.
There's no strategy is the wrong word. There's no action plan at that time.
No.
All the things that we're doing under Veronica Lutter's time faded away, and it got to the point that the meeting after meeting got cancelled, so there was no longer the refresh of the town guide itself. All of a sudden it turned up with a different map, which is useless. I have no idea what happened to that leaflet that we were given to coach companies, because that was the working group that used to get that updated and printed. The council gave the money to do it. You hired a distribution companies to get it out all over the place. All of those things were done in a coordinated way, and the town staff had their role. And it was, some of the doing was done by the staff, but the planning of it was done by the group.
I mean, I do have coach companies that they've got my number, the driver will ring me and say we're coming to Sandwich, and I make sure that myself and one of the volunteers are down by the coach when they turn up and hand out all the town guides and point them in different directions. But I don't think I should be doing that, but I do that because I want the coaches to come in, and I want people to say, oh, you know, Sandwich was great, we were welcomed, we were shown everywhere, and then I'll say to the driver, oh, you know, he goes off and parks and just come back, you know, when you're ready and before they go to Margate. But I think what we need to do is we need to have a clear, like you say, Steve, a clear strategy of what we're going to be doing to encourage these coaches to come in, because when coaches come in, they bring 54 people. They want to walk around shops, they want to walk around do different things and go and get a coffee or go to a cafe or go. I mean, I work with tours, and the biggest thing is when I stop at a town with a tour, they want to buy from local shops because they want to take it home and say, oh, I went to Harrogate or something and look what I bought. Or they want to find those shops and they want to go for a coffee. They don't want to go into Costa because they can go into Costa any time they want to. They want to go to a shop or a cafe or an independent so they can tell their family, this is where I've been. Or I went to Sandwich and I went to the medieval. There's a medieval centre. That's what they want. They don't just want to rock up, spend 3 hours in Costa, and then get back on the coach.
And we went up to the group travel show in London 2 years running with the Salutation, with Steve Edney and others, and there was a noticeable increase in the number of coach parties coming to Sandwich. There was a big increase in the W3 organisation. One of the biggest questions we were asked is, where does the coach park? In those days I used to know an answer, I wouldn't know what to say nowadays. Coach parking was put on the agenda for council. I don't know what's happened to that initiative. And we did actually draw up itineraries for these people, giving advice on where they could eat, what were the clubs, which ones had character, and all of these things were happening. And unfortunately, the last 3 years, we went through a phase where meeting after meeting was cancelled. Certainly, the then Mac Board wanted to keep meetings short, so there wasn't a lot of space for brainstorming. Then they got cancelled, then the pandemic came along, and then you got cancelled the organisation. The whole thing's just died a death. A lot of things were happening. And a lot of them are worth resurrecting, some of them time has moved on. But you've got to have a group of people who sit down and think through all the things that could be done, need to be done, and how do you do it?
So the upshot is we need a strategy and we need a proactive manager to go out and get these people in and
perhaps not.
Well, you need that committee again.
You need a proactive committee that doesn't only include councillors but includes local business people as well, like people sitting around this table.
Well, we insisted on that when we set it up, the tourism committee, when we set it up back in 2011, because prior to that we only had one tourism meeting per year, and that was to receive the visitor numbers for the TIC and to agree on the opening hours for the ensuing year. That was it. And then in 2011, due to primarily 12 years ago today was the day that Pfizer made the announcement of the closure of the site at Richborough. And then we started seeing shops closing, most prominently the bookshop, which was a fantastic asset for this town.
And we had Blue Sky Thinking seminar chaired by Roxanne's, and that came various initiatives. One of them actually is linked to the Medieval Centre, which was a circuitous route. And a lot of strategies and initiatives were going on because people spent time getting together to talk it through and work it out.
I mean, Chris Day at a meeting the other day he said Sandwich has Richborough, which people are saying should be a World Heritage Site. Completest medieval town in England, plus the Magna Carta, the museum and everything. So why aren't we, I mean, you know, do we need to be thinking about paying for this kind of...
I mean, I think if you've got the budget, that is, if you want people to take notice of Sandwich, then I think maybe you are going to have to do paid advertisement. I don't think you can do anything for free. I think you're going to have a budget where you do paid advertisement and you approach people like the Telegraph and the Radio Times and things like that, and you have a paid advertisement in there, because that's what happened.
Also filming. the courtroom. Empire of Light is going to generate millions of pounds worth of business for Margate.
Dover have actually done some good videos of Sandwich, and Chris down in at the last meeting and knows about that. And again, we don't even know sometimes that those materials exist, and we certainly don't make it easy. So if somebody's doing an article like that, if they use online resources, or they come and look at our website, they won't necessarily find those bits because they're not all put together, they're not easy to find. But some of those materials are really good.
We had the history project down, didn't we? The history project came
but
down.
If you do have a tourist centre of some sort, then these videos, they can be running while people are they can be up running. So the things about Sandwich, it's the background stuff. I mean, and also it's how, I know we've got maps as well now, but it's about how they get around. The number of people that just stop you to find out where somewhere is. It's not, they may have looked it all up, but they can't find it.
Don't know where we are.
And that's sort of the other issue.
I mean,
So
there's a pub I go to in St Ives a lot, and they have a film of St Ives running all the time.
The Haven has that. I mean, the Haven has that.
Yeah.
I mean, the Haven's got all those beautiful pictures of how Sandwich used to look with the cattle market, and then they have the CD, don't they, that you can buy of bygone Sandwich that they have playing. That
So
I sit there and look at it all the time.
Every business and pub needs to be a mini tourist office in a way, doesn't it?
I think you should always keep on remembering the difference between your information flows to people who haven't yet come to Sandwich, when you're telling them why they should come, and how you look after visitors when they're here.
when they're here,
And that strategy to look after them, again, not only facilities like toilet information about what's on, what's available, etc. So there's two different approaches: the promotional side of it, and then the satisfaction side of it, the delivery side. Keep on keeping them separate.
Can we move on?
Yes.
We need to get through this agenda.
A quick question, sort of where people are recommending a group or a committee or something like that, is the thinking that it should be run by the council or another group, perhaps of its own? I'm thinking, should it be a council committee? Is that what people are suggesting, or are they suggesting, or might the thinking actually be that it be that you could have councillors as representatives on it, but not actually controlling?
Well, the
in
Chamber
a sense.
is talking about setting up a tourism committee, so perhaps they want to take
I just find that bizarre,
It was
actually.
the Chamber that recommended the council. So Mark and I were on Chamber at the time, and the Chamber produced one small little DL leaflet, and the Chamber paid for it. That was the only promotion there was for Sandwich Town. And the Chamber recommended that it should be it's a town council function, and town council funded. And the good thing about it being a town council committee was when a new initiative came up, especially this information distribution, and it required a budget of another £5,000. If it's a group that's attached to the Chamber or town team, they'd only have to come to the council and say, give us money, because it's got to be funded by the town council.
So it needs to have the council on it, or be a council subcommittee, but with other people on it.
That was the model that we came up with, and actually it worked. And it's one of these questions: if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Why did it cease functioning?
But as far as I'm aware, a parish council has no duty to promote tourism.
No duty, but the council wanted to, and the mayors wanted to, until we got to the point where a particular mayor wasn't that fussed. But the role of the tourism committee was to come up with recommendations to council, including requests for funds. And that request for funds had to be agreed by full council. And when full council said yes, here's another £5,000 to promote Sandwich, get more visitors and coach parties, then the council, the tourism group, the tourism committee became the delivery vehicle to make it happen.
It's worth noting that no council has a legal obligation to provide lavatories either.
That's right.
It's by choice.
It's
But
not by choice.
I mean, with
we do it because we want to.
With what's happened in the past, and with COVID, we're starting with a blank slate.
What I tried to say last week, might as well blame it all on the pandemic. So everything that's come down to a whole blame on the pandemic. Then you haven't got any politics about it. Even if it might have been due to people. Exactly. So anyway, we've got to start all over again post-pandemic.
Can we move on?
Yes.
Steve, at the last meeting you just spoke about sandwich events, but I was aware you were cut short a bit. But is there anything more to add?
Not really. One of the biggest problems at the moment, we don't know what to do with food fair for the same reason. Will the forecourt be finished? Will it be available? I am annoyed that I was promised that the forecourt redevelopment, I would be consulted and kept involved not only through events, but also the sandwich shop. It hasn't happened. I don't know what's going on, and I still don't know what to do with the food fair. Late May, will we have access? Won't we? Is it worth trying to shoehorn it into Market Street and King Street? I really don't know. So one of the big events has got that huge question mark over it.
Is it only the food fair? Isn't it?
Yeah, I think after that, Fortis isn't fussy about the forecourt, particularly.
When's the outflow one? Is that later?
It's
That's
in
the
June.
weekend,
June,
that's June.
That's in June. Second weekend of June.
The contractor who phoned me today said they would be finished by the end of May.
And that's what should happen. That's where the food fair is.
Don't believe it.
No,
and
no.
the trouble is, what happens if there's overrun? What we should be having is meetings that say, well, if there is overrun, the overrun will only be installing the benches, the signage, the trees, or whatever. But hey, we'll make sure you can have the hard standing for the food fair on the weekend. But without a dialogue, you can't plan. I don't even know who the project manager was. I contacted the project manager 2 or 3 times myself over the years, and they promised that they'll get back to the regular meetings and regular consultation. It just hasn't happened.
It starts on Monday, doesn't it?
Yeah, I was told by my staff that they pop in and tell the staff serving the coffee what's going on, but they don't consult with us.
I've got a meeting with them at 10 o'clock tomorrow about the market. But
There's been no inflection of businesses.
no, not so ever.
It's appalling, actually.
Yeah.
And yet, actually, at the council meeting on Monday evening, I believe that our Dover council, Dan Friend, council friend, sorry, said that the businesses had all been liaised with. He actually, I think
He didn't say that. He said they were being communicated.
They were being communicated.
Or some had been done and others were still
Yeah,
to.
well,
I've never been asked for anything.
I'm
Have
not.
you, Jane?
No, I'm
Never
not.
anything. And all these surveys that's supposed to have taken place, well, I'm not part of it. So I've never been asked anything.
Can I just mention very quickly, with regards to bringing people into Sandwich, the Sandwich Connect bus service is going to discontinue at the end of next week. And I would have hoped that the KCC officer would have told us, councillor would have told us that. It's a withdrawal of KCC funding, and so that service is ending. And so whoever was coming into Sandwich using that, there is no alternative.
Okay. Can we move on? 7 is that everything, Steve?
Yeah.
Quayside update. I spoke to Nick Gray today and he's heard nothing. There's this DDC report that's still under wraps. We don't know.
We need to talk about it.
Yeah, there's no update yet. Number 8, response to consultation. I've had many responses in various forms to the letter I sent out and also through Facebook and so on. And what I'm trying to do, the closing date was yesterday, so if anyone hasn't yet responded, could they come back to me ASAP? What I'll try and do is just condense that into a kind of summary form, just to say what people are thinking, and to bring that to the next meeting. Number 9, telephone boxes, blue plaque scheme. At the meeting of the council, when we agreed the budget, we increased the budget for telephone boxes to, I think, 2,000. In the town we've got 2 of the historic Gilbert Scott telephone boxes, which the idea is that A, they need to be upgraded and restored because they're looking a bit shabby, but also there's an idea that they might, one or more of them might be used as a mini tourist office with leaflets and so on, or a book exchange.
If you have a word with Rob Coleman, we'll probably do it for that.
Yeah, exactly. He did the one on
He did the one
King
for us
Street.
at the post office.
Very well. Good job. Blue plaque scheme, again, that's just something that's on the agenda, but as part of the tourist information offer, if you like. Not just for famous people, but for incidents or people who stayed there, or like the kitchen at camp, or the history of the building. It's something we need to look at, and it would be part of a town trail, so that you could say, Sydney Greensteep lived here, or E.W. Swanton, or so-and-so stayed here. Peter Jerome lived here. Mike Milligan.
I think that's the sort of thing, though, that needs to come way behind a strategy.
Yeah, it's a longer term.
It's yeah.
But Ramsgate do it. They do both famous. They do both famous people. Karl Marx stayed here, but they also have. I don't know if you've seen on places like Effingham Streets. They have the much more detailed history of the road. It's very hard to read actually, but
once you've got, if once you've got your committee set up, surely that's something
Yes.
that
Yeah.
they should take forward as
Of course,
an
yeah.
initiative.
Number 10 is wider publicity and promotion.
That's what we've just been talking about,
Yeah.
isn't it? That's what we're talking about.
Can I just say one thing about Sandwich and Bloom?
Yeah.
We obviously want to do all the flowers this year in red, white and blue. And as I've got business people here as well, I just wondered if you can promote the idea of getting flowers outside your shops or your buildings, any sorts of flowers. So, but hopefully in red, white and blue this year, so that we can really join in, because we're celebrating a coronation, and I think it would be really nice. I'm hoping we will get baskets up around the Guildhall by May, but I don't know whether we'll be able to get on the forecourt to do that. But certainly the ones on the quay we'll do, and we're looking at trying to do something else down there too.
Are you going to ask residents to put out?
Well, we will ask residents, and 2 years ago, the residents now, there are a lot more residents now that put flowers out than ever did before. So we've got the shops, we've got some shops that do it, and I really appreciate that some of it is difficult to get fixings on the outside of the shops as well. It's not easy, but if it's a pot that goes out, and I know you might have to bring it in
Be
at
a
night.
shop theme, shop window theme.
Yeah, a shop window. Yeah, we did.
You know, it doesn't have to be flowers. We could
Effie
encourage.
McLean, well, when it was a collection, they always used to do it inside the window.
One of our little projects that we wanted to do this year was maybe to set up some sort of competition between the shops and the residents and bring everybody together. We did that 3 years. As long as it doesn't tread anybody else's toes.
No, 3 years ago, Sandwich in Bloom did that. We had to go around and take photographs, and we had a big evening when we gave out certificates.
Fantastic. Yeah, and that's exactly what
so
we were
we
thinking.
can have a look at that. Would be great.
Work alongside you with that.
Brilliant.
Fantastic. Yeah.
And then can I just quickly clarify, do Sandwich in Bloom get regular money from the council?
No.
And if not, why not? Because other towns are supported by the council.
Sandwich in Bloom, when we set it up, it was under the apprehension that the council would actually support it financially.
No.
At the 13th hour, we were told no, they wouldn't. They would only do it as a match funding.
Okay.
And to set it up was going to cost £10,000 because we actually had to buy all the baskets and the innards.
Yes.
So for the last 5 years, we've actually had to do match funding, but we haven't had any income apart from the co-op money. We had that, and we've eked it out because I wouldn't go to businesses. I mean, I have this year gone back to the golf to Royal St George's and Discovery Park, because they have a separate fund for helping local. I don't know whether we've got any money, but I have now asked Sandwich Council if for this year they would actually give us a grant without us match funding, because I've got about £3,500 in the bank, and it will cost me £3,000 to do the winter and summer planting on the quay and the baskets and the station. So effectively, that will wipe that out. So what I want is some security there. But if everybody did their bit, it would actually save us doing quite so much as well. Sorry.
There does need to be a wider debate about how money is spent in this town.
Yeah,
As John said earlier, we are quite well off.
You are at the moment,
that's
yes.
PR, isn't it? You could think,
the
that's
Tollbridge
beautiful.
Fund can give out grants, but I think we need to tighten up on the eligibility criteria, because for me at least, grants have been going to organisations that aren't necessarily...
Which is why I said, could it be discussed, because we do see that other people have got grants, and Sandwich in Bloom have never had any payment from Sandwich Town Council that they haven't had to previously match fund.
And the other issue with that is that this building is very, very expensive to look after and run.
But I mean, even the flowers, even the baskets here, we pay for.
I was exactly going to say that. The fact that Sandwich in Bloom put the baskets on the Guildhall and yet the council don't pay, it's inconceivable to me.
Well, they did give match funding, to be fair. We've had a few thousand from them. But we had to find the money first, and then they matched it. You know, so they have given us money. What they were really saying is, we're not going to give you money if you don't put some effort in to try and find some yourself. But of course, with the pandemic and with the financial crisis at the moment, it's almost impossible to go to anybody for money.
Mhm.
You know, that's the problem, which is why Carol stood up at council on Monday saying, look, situation's changed. Is there any way you can finance it, at least for this year?
I just don't understand why you don't apply to the Tilbridge Fund, because there you don't have to produce that.
Well, that discussion was had 5 years ago, and this was the conclusion
I
they
don't
came up with.
understand. I mean, it's something
Yeah, I'd go
else.
for it.
Yes,
It is something else.
Is there any other business? One thing I just raised is that I had an email from a guy called Neil McCullum, who is he manages all the English heritage sites in Kent, including Richborough. But he's also, in the past, he was manager of tourism for Canterbury, Thanet, District Council, City Council, and he managed the tourist information centres, and he'd like to come along to our next meeting. Might be a useful contact. So, can I suggest the next meeting maybe?
Well, can I go back before you do that?
Yeah.
I'd like to know actually what the action plan is for the first thing we discussed, not the toilets, if that's a council thing, the tourism action plan.
Yeah.
I mean, there's got to be, you know, we had a long discussion, but no action at the end of it.
Okay, so
where are we?
I'll come on. Well, as we said earlier, this is a time-limited working group. I will try to collate all the views that we've had at these meetings and all the responses to the letters, the data that we've had, etc., and I will present that as a draft first of all to this working group, and then it will go to the Heritage and Townscape Committee with a list of recommendations, which might say, for example, that we need to revamp the guides, we need to think about strategy, we need social media, we need to move the visitor and rename it the tourist office and put it in the front of the building here, or in the visitor in St Peter's, or in a pop-up. All of these things are on the table.
Are you going to include the Chamber of Commerce? Because when I went to that meeting Monday of last week, I think it was, okay, Richard Harris turned up now, but they were very keen to work with this group. And it was my suggestion. I said, look, it's ridiculous having you up here and the other group there, and they're basically doing the same thing, or overlapping things. You should be working together.
I think
as one
The
group.
Chamber of Commerce isn't about tourism, is it? It's about supporting businesses, the whole business.
Yeah, but it's all connected.
It is, but in reality, that's not their priority. They're supporting businesses, they're sharing, they're educating businesses, aren't they? It's not
But
tourism.
what they said was that they were going to set up a tourism committee.
Oh yeah, no, but also not only that, Discovery Park have apparently got a Chamber of Commerce and they're setting up a tourism. White Mills joined Dover Chamber of Commerce. They didn't join whatever's going on around here. So I think we should completely discount the Chamber of Commerce if you want to get any action going.
I fully agree.
I reiterate, this is a time-limited working group.
Exactly.
If the Chamber set up a committee, that will be for a long time.
Yeah.
So it's a different. It's a different
I think they're being disruptors.
Completely.
They're being disruptors.
We're just making recommendations to the council, and as we said before, this is like a blank slate because of all that's happened in the past. We're starting from scratch.
Well,
if they want to work with
and
us,
they can
that's
prove
fine.
themselves, can't they? And show how they're supporting all of
Exactly,
the,
but
the businesses.
I think
at
I
the moment
personally
there's no
would need to have
evidence.
proof that they are
Yes.
a representative body and not just 3 or 4 people in a room. You know, they need to be having a membership scheme where they're saying, look, we've got 50 members, they're all paying a subscription, and we're having an annual meeting where decisions are made and policy decisions are made. You know, this is our view on pedestrianisation.
I'm not a member.
Planning applications, whatever it
I
might
thought
be.
that's what they wanted to do, but anyway.
Well, I hope they will do that.
Well,
You know,
they
the
have
more-
in a sense to do what they did 10 years ago and say to the town council, you need a strong working group on tourism and we want to be part of it. So we all pull together.
Fine, we'll do that.
That's what they said 10 years ago, that's what they should say now.
So data
It's the same
next,
people, isn't it?
Data for next meeting is
data next meeting. Shall we say in 3 weeks' time? 2 or 3 weeks?
Is that half term?
Oh yeah, we've got half term.
No, 3 weeks, the 22nd.
3 weeks, yeah, 3 weeks, I'm about to say.
What's half term, is it?
I'm back on the 20th.
Oh yeah, 20th. Shall we say the 20th or 21st?
Claire Townscape is meeting on the 20th, and I've done the agenda because I'm about to go on holiday. But I'm going to put the market
Thank you.
on as a signpost that it's something that we really do have to discuss.
so.
But we probably won't discuss it at that meeting, but for the next.
You've got the Heritage and Townscape meeting
On the
on the
20th.
20th.
Can we do the 22nd, which is 3 weeks today?
22nd.
21st, not the
It's
22nd.
21st is pancakes.
Yeah, I'm sorry, but
Mm.
sorry, we've got to
We
have
can't do
pancake.
Can't make that meeting.
Which one's back there?
21st.
21st,
Should we
Tuesday
say
the 21st.
22nd?
I'd have to leave at 6:30.
Could we go earlier and maybe do 5:30?
Half 5?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what time really, but 5 o'clock, 5:30, whatever's easy.
5 o'clock.
Should we say 22nd at 5:30?
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, okay. That's Ash Wednesday.
Yeah.
Does anything happen on Ash Wednesday?
Lunchtime mass, black.
Yes.
We eat
Which
chocolate.
And I think at the next meeting it might be worth talking about trying to get all the leaflets that we produce across the town in one place so that we can
That would
at
be
least have a
good,
look at them.
yeah.
Dean has them all.
Secondly, the guy from English Heritage. And yeah, I think those are the two main things. Is there something else?
Good.
Visit Kent.
Yeah, visit Kent. I'll try and get Chris Townend along to that meeting as well.
It's going to be a long meeting.
And try and keep it
Perhaps the
a bit
person to
shorter.
visit Kent is more important because Chris has already been.
Visit Kent.
And because Visit Kent, our presence on the Visit Kent website
Oh, yes.
It's appalling.
hopeless.
They're very difficult to work with, very time consuming, and we have to spoon feed them almost everything. And a lot of the time we just want to pay them more money.
Oh right, it's a subscription organisation.
There was, I can't say what it is today, but last time we spent far too much time talking about Destination Alliance under their umbrella, where they wanted to spend money and they'd help design strategy and plan all the rest of it. It was too bureaucratic and da da da. But whenever you wanted to get something simple like something better on the website, well, just talk to the girl who does the job. You know, talk to the guy who's in the office. And what are these meetings for? I personally, I think, wait and see what this group recommends, and if you set up another working group, body committee, call it what you will, that's the organisation you should engage with as a Kent. A bit more of a long haul. Whereas a Crescent over a quicker.
What's the legal status of Visit Kent?
Well, it would have changed in the last 3 years, I don't know.
So they're an arm's length company from EDC.
Oh no, it's Kent County. How much central government funding there is and how much it's only Kent County Council funding, I'm not sure. And now how much it's subscription.
Can I just say?
Some of it's
Oh, sorry.
subscription.
No, sorry.
No, can we'd really like the opportunity to talk about the walkabout we did the other day, the Compass Group. We did an audit, sort of an audit, on signage and how people encounter Sandwich, whichever way they come from. And I think we've got a few things that we'd like to really point out and share.
Actually, that's a good point, because at the last meeting we talked about doing
that. I mean, that's obviously
Yeah,
that's
we
tourism
took
information.
photos.
from a visitor perspective.
Yeah,
We'll
and
try
we
and
made it black. I'll pull the photos
We'll try and put
together.
little sort of thing
Maybe I
together.
could organise that
Could
for
you
like
separate that
we could
beforehand?
do a combined walkabout and litter pick.
Yeah.
Pick up litter at the same time. On a Saturday morning.
Well, we have already done a walkabout.
Yeah, they've done
We
it.
did
They've
one
got
last
it.
week.
Okay.
Did you walk from the railway station?
Yes, yeah.
Did you video it?
No, but I took a lot of photos.
Maybe you
of
could
dead
write.
ends.
Could you write
No
it
signs.
up for the
Yeah.
next meeting?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'll
just-
print off the photos and
Yeah,
caption it.
okay. So
Online.
yeah, the next meeting, the guy from English Heritage, also the feedback we've had and the information we've get. We'll try and restrict it to those 3 things. Is that okay?
Yeah, that would be good.
Any other business?